Hi everyone. I'm Marcia Nedland. I'm one of the organizers for the National Middle Neighborhoods Community Practice. And today we have a really fun and timely, I think, webinar about holiday celebrations, effective and fun ideas for community engagement. And I think what's really going to be especially meaningful about this webinar is not just the nitty-gritty of how to put on a good event, but also the whys behind it and how you use events to accomplish a lot of other goals too. And both of our speakers today are outstanding at that. So I think it's going to be a thoughtful and interesting webinar. And I think it's going to make us all want to do events despite how much work they are. So just one slide about what the Middle Neighborhoods Initiative is. It's only about 6-7 years old. And it's a national initiative of mostly volunteers who are focused on drawing attention to middle neighborhoods. And by that, I mean, if you think about where you live, the neighborhoods are neither the most distressed, nor are they, the most healthy. For a long time, we think that people just assume that middle neighborhoods were fine. And when somebody sold a house, then another owner occupant would buy it and life would go on. But as we started to look at the data, we've seen in an awful lot of middle neighborhoods, well, first of all, they're just disappearing. And it's either through decline because people aren't reinvesting in them and the housing stock's a little, not meeting the standards of today's home buyers, say, for instance, only has one bath, or through gentrification because, in these hotter markets like we've been experiencing lately, the prices just go up and up and it becomes a place where it's no longer as feasible for first-time buyers to choose that neighborhood and to, be the place where they start to accumulate some home equity. So we're really trying just to get cities and nonprofits to look at their middle neighborhoods, look at the trends there, and think about whether there need to be some interventions to be sure that those middle neighborhoods are around for the next few generations. So in this national initiative, we have a community of practice that connects about 400 different practitioners, policymakers, and researchers around things like this webinar. We do research into topics that are relevant to middle neighborhood practitioners and policymakers. We've been doing a lot of our research over the last few years on Black middle neighborhoods as a subset of middles, because Black middle neighborhoods face a lot of extra stressors, pressures, historically racist policies that mean they're not really starting in the same place as other middle neighborhoods. So we're trying to figure out, how does the theory of change need to be different to really address that policy history in those neighborhoods so that they can also be successful. Policy analysis and advocacy, and communication strategies. And the whole initiative is coordinated between the National Community Stabilization Trust and NeighborWorks America, and we have a steering committee. We really hope that you will think about joining our community of practice. You just have to sign up at the bottom of any web page at middleneighborhoods.org. So who do we have speaking today? I'm so excited. We have Symphony Malveaux, who is the Community Engagement Manager at Mid-City Redevelopment Alliance in Baton Rouge. And we have Lily Hamburger, who's Associate Director of the Business Support Network at Invest Detroit in Detroit. Both of those places are fascinating places in general, really cool places, and they both work on a variety of very thoughtful events that are meant to help accomplish community development goals. So I think we're going to allow Symphony to take over and put her slides up. And by the way, we always record these and we will send the link out to everyone after the webinar when we get the recording. And if for some reason you lose track of it, we always post them on our website as well. Take it away, Symphony, and thank you for coming.
Yes, good morning, everyone. First things first, I instantly realized I spelled event wrong. So let's just take that as a great morning. Well done. But good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Symphony Malveaux, And I'm going to talk about how to create community events that are impactful, creative, and sustainable. And throughout my PowerPoint and my slides, you're going to see every picture that I have is an event that we created and supported. And this is one of those in Louisiana. As you know, Mardi Gras is a core essential holiday for us. And so our community put on their own Mardi Gras parade every year that is ran by residents, created by residents, and supported by residents. So this is just one of those pictures.
And you call it Mid-City Gras, right? Which I think
Yes,
is
it's called Mid-City Gras. It's created directly, like I said, by residents, and it's always the Sunday before the week of Mardi Gras. So everyone is always prepared. And it's along one of our major corridors that connects two sides of the community. Small introduction about me. As she said previously, I'm the community engagement manager. I've been working at Mid-City Redevelopment Alliance since 2019. In that year, I also received my master's in public administration, concentrating on nonprofit management. And I focus on disinvested minority communities and seeing how can we empower the residents, educate the residents, and support them in creating events, projects, experiences, anything that increases their quality of life and pushes them forward as a community. A little bit about our organization. We develop and promote the growth and revitalization of Mid-City Baton Rouge by attracting new and retaining current residents and businesses. Our organization is over 30 years old. And now with the work that we're doing, we partnered with the city to really touch all of East Baton Rouge versus a neighborhood such as Mid-City. Some of the things I want to cover today: benefits of community events, how to create an event, volunteer recruitment strategies, and project sustainability. Let's get started. So, why do we do events, right? Like, we know that it's going to bring money into a community. We know it's really cool to connect people to their residents. And sometimes, you know, at the end of the day, it really does help with our reporting, right? But it has to be more than that. If we're going to put in time to create an event, it has to be more than just checking a name or checking a line off of our report, right? And so I always say, think of the purpose and where you're coming from when you're making community events. Are you top down? Where is your organization? You're a city official and you're creating projects and plans because you know it's something that needs to happen, or it would be a really cool idea for them, but you have not included them. You have not included the people a part of the community. Or is it bottom up, where you're invested in the community, you're meeting with people, you're seeing what they want. A lot of times, you know, we can look at a neighborhood and say, oh, this neighborhood needs a new walk path, or they need new trees. But when you meet them, they say, honestly, we just want food disparity. Like we battle with food disparity, and can you support us in that? So really seeing where are you coming from? What is your lens first? And then when we create these projects, we have to figure out, or we have to always figure out moving our spaces and community spaces from a disinvested community to a sustainable community. Disinvested can also look into the lens of redlining and spatial inequities, blight abandonment. Are there unkept land? Are there houses that are abandoned that no one lives there? And is it tearing down the beauty of the community? Are there health, wealth, and transportation inequities? Is the community a bikeable, walkable space, but there's no walking paths? Is it affordable? Do they have affordability, or are they battling with displacement in their community? When you start really looking at what's happening in that community, it can best fit and structure your project to align with these goals and aspirations to push them forward. A project should always push a community forward. And then your results should be pride in place, access to public infrastructure, affordable homes, mixed neighborhoods. And I understand that not all communities kind of battle with these inequities and disinvestments, but there's always something in a community that should push them forward to a sustainable space. And so now we ask the question, how do you create an impactful community project, right? You now have your why, you know what you want to do, we've settled on, we're going to do a block party to increase the pride in place. How do you do that, right? And so I kind of narrowed it down into 5 steps. First one, we just discovered purpose. Know your purpose, know your goal, know your why and what you hope to achieve. Audience, identify who needs to be there. Who needs to be in the room to make this decision? If you're going to create a project for a community, there needs to be people from the community to understand and be a part of this decision, or else it was never for them. Step 3, design your project. Now this one, I made it kind of small because I do feel like step 3 can be a minimum of 7 to 10 steps, because it's in this space, you're creating your project. You're aligning it with your purpose and your audience. You always want to seek that it's equitable, inclusive, and advances their community in quality of life forward. In this space, you're looking for funds to support your project. You're looking for people to connect with to make sure that you're being very inclusive in the resources that you are providing to the community. And it is here where you truly design and flesh out that block party. What does that look like? What are you bringing to the community? How do you plan to do that? Step 4, outreach. Invite the community you serve. Reach out to current neighborhoods, neighborhood leaders for recommendations. Always connect with people throughout every step of the process. And then step 5, sustainability. We want to make sure any project that we do in communities has a sustainability process connected to it. We don't want to create projects that are one and done. We want to make sure that whatever block party, Christmas event, bonfire to Easter egg hunt is allowing the community to know that you're consistent. You're there and you're always going to be there pushing them forward and allowing them to take that hold of that. I always say when in this type of work that we do, we're working ourselves out of a job and eventually into a space where they look to us for support and not to necessarily leave them alone. Volunteer recruitment. So here are some of the strategies that I've used in the past to recruit volunteers, because with any project, we need help. Some of our staffs are 5 people, 8 people, and even 20, 30 people. We need help. But this also creates more buy-in from your community, because when you feel a part of something, you want to see it happen. You want to see it become some beautiful experience that you can talk about later. So we've used social media and paid ads, depending on how large the event is. We definitely paid ads to push that along on Facebook and Instagram. Neighborhood influencers. So your neighborhood influencers are not always the businesses and the organizations, but is Mr. Earl, who always talks to the kids every morning at the bus stop. Is Miss Sheila, who always walks her dog on Tuesdays, but she talks to everyone in the community as she goes and walking with her dog. The influencers are people that has the ear of the community. And it's very important that you connect with them, because that's the only way your project will not be rejected. It is the only way that you can be included in these spaces that you serve. Local organizations, businesses, nonprofits, any organization or entity that is connected to this community, we've supported with reaching out for volunteers. We've also sent out emails and newsletters. We've connected with city officials. We've also connected with residents of any age, young and old, because they play a part and they can also bring other family members and friends along. And we've also sent out press releases as well. And then our last step, as I said before, sustainability. What's next? What's going to make sure that the residents feel that you just didn't come out here just to say you did something and then leave? What is the buy-in, like, from the decision makers as well as the community residents? How did you sustain that they want to continue moving that forward? Some of the things that we've done in the past, we've connected emails, connected with people through emails and created small committees. If they were interested in, let's say, this block party, we've connected with them to have a committee for future block parties. So they will now be creating the future events and experiences such as that. Sufficient leadership, funding, and channels of communication. You want to always make sure that you stay connected to people within the community and within the city as well, so they can always be pushing these programs forward. And create procedures in place to continue resident empowerment and connections to resources. So what is going to keep the residents empowered to want to do more? Is that a training? is that conversation, is that connecting with them to other organizations to bring resources to their space. How can we make sure that we are always, like I said, pushing them forward to increase their quality of life, to then become an ecosystem that's self-sustained? And here are a couple of projects that we've done in the past. So we have created a pocket park, or worked with residents to create a pocket park, which is simply they took a corner of a space, like an empty vacant lot in their neighborhood, and reactivated as a park for their community, so the kids will have a close place to play. In the picture with this woman painting the blue column, we actually repainted these columns at a local community library to beautify the space. We've had a home rehab project where we repainted homes in different communities. We also did corridor cleanups and different type of concerts. We've had this community that really enjoys concerts. I mean, who doesn't? And so they actually connected with different residents that have bands in their neighborhood. And on different Fridays throughout the month, local residents get to perform on the road, and people would just come out and listen and have their own miniature block parties on Fridays. So we've partaken in many different type of projects, from parades to fairs to festivals, resource fairs, but all of these experiences, we made sure that the residents wanted them. And this isn't just something that we thought they needed, but also made sure that they were a part of the decision-making process the whole time. Well, I think we're going to probably get to questions at the end, but is that right? Ms. Marcia?
Yes.
Do you want to take any questions now?
We'll hold questions to the end. And so let's have Lily put her size up.
Thank you.
That was terrific. Thank you.
That was absolutely inspirational, Symphony. Thank you. I would love to come to one of your events after seeing that.
Please, they're so fun.
It seems that way. It seems that way. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Lily Hamburger, and as Marcia mentioned in the introduction, I am with Invest Detroit. And I want to talk with you today about a collaborative project in Detroit around drawing customers to our small business community during the holiday season. And I'm going to give you a little bit of context for this, that my work is very focused on creating an inclusive network of support for entrepreneurs, and ensuring that as Detroit grows and develops, that our development is inclusive and that we're creating vibrant neighborhoods for everybody. So the work that I do is all about supporting entrepreneurs of color, Detroit entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs that are investing in Detroit's neighborhoods. So this story that I'm going to tell you about what we've done around the holidays and holiday shopping is really not just about Invest Detroit, but it is a story of collaboration. And I'll say also, by way of introduction of myself, that I joined the team that I currently sit with in May of this year. And previously I was with another organization that supported small businesses. And so a lot of the story, I had a different perspective and was sitting in a different seat. So really, I'm just a messenger from a very large group of people that have worked on this. So keep that in context. And one other piece about my job is that Invest Detroit has a formal partnership with the New Economy Initiative, which is the funder of many of these nonprofits that support entrepreneurs in this network of small business support organizations. So let's see, here we go. Okay, so this is the context that I wanted to give you. So we have a network of nonprofits that we call BSOs, Business Support Organizations. And there is a very collaborative spirit among these organizations in Detroit. They're organizations that provide technical assistance to small businesses, provide financing to small businesses, and also some of which are neighborhood based, and so are in neighborhoods, supporting small businesses in the context of neighborhoods and the role that they play in creating safe and vibrant places, along with other services they provide to residents in that community. I mentioned the New Economy Initiative. The New Economy Initiative, NEI, is a funder. So they're giving money to these BSOs and also serving as a convener and a facilitator. So NEI started the office that I work for at Invest Detroit about a year ago. And then the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, which is my former employer, has a small business outreach team and other small business support programs, but has often been like a sort of aggregator of these small business efforts in Detroit, and continues to serve in that way, sort of, bringing together a lot of the efforts that have gone on. So with that context, I'll tell you a little bit about what we did. So this is an initiative where all of these organizations have come together to try and say, like, how can we celebrate our small business community? How can we drive traffic, customer traffic and attention to small businesses? How can we raise awareness about the beautiful and unique goods and services that are being offered by our neighborhood entrepreneurs to shoppers, so that they grow to be repeat customers and don't just shop there for the holiday season, but also year round. We wanted to provide small business owners with a marketing platform and some best practices to help them, improve how they bring in sales. And then also to just create a sense of support and camaraderie and vibrancy in our neighborhoods. So again, the focus of all this is underserved micro businesses, and underserved is a fungible term. There's not a very specific definition of it, but it often means people of color, people in middle neighborhoods, people in disinvested neighborhoods, and then micro businesses is like the smallest of the small, the family owned mom and pop sole proprietors on the main streets of our neighborhoods. And one other piece of context is that this has been a very Detroit focused thing, but that our network is beginning to expand very intentionally into the outer parts of Wayne County, the county in which Detroit sits. So we're hoping to see this evolve, into the future. So here are some of the things that we have tried, and I think they have all added something, but it's been, an experimental effort over the past, I would say, 5-ish years. Having a listing of businesses with a map so that shoppers can find places to buy their goods and services, buy their holiday, meet their holiday needs locally. A holiday shopping guide by category. A social media campaign. Last year, we did a bingo competition where if you found certain goods and services at Detroit businesses, you could win a gift card to Detroit Small Business. We ran a couple of best practices for small business owners on how to make the most of the holiday season. This was especially critical during the pandemic. We have another one coming up on Monday. We're doing, just best practices for small business owners. We also did a best practices webinar for neighborhood organizations. And this was about what Symphony was just talking about, how to create an event that is intentional, that engages the community, that is authentic to the community, and that makes your community feel good. And of course, also we had the goal of the shop local as well. Many of our neighborhood organizations do events during the holidays for all the reasons that I just said. And then we also collectively try to create some in neighborhoods where there wasn't a community organization doing events. So going to a small business owner and saying, hey, would you host a, cider and donuts event in your shop, and we can bring people to you and make a flyer and draw folks in that way. And then it turned into like, well, let's take a bus to this other neighborhood down the road and things like that. So this is an area that definitely created some energy and had a lot of different types of events. And I'll get more into that in a bit. The holiday activation mini grants sort of fueled these events in neighborhoods, because last year we raised $30,000 from a couple of organizations to fund events in neighborhoods with the goal of engaging the community and driving foot traffic to small businesses in the neighborhoods. And it really gave rise to more of these neighborhood events run by not only, established neighborhood organizations that are, nonprofits that are already doing these activities, but also to some individuals with creative ideas, business owners and residents who just said, I want to do a pop-up shop, or I want to do a holiday thing for kids with vendors and things like that. So that last year was the first year that we did that. And I'll go more into that, that grant program in a future slide. We did do some purchasing of promotions for this, and also some earned media. There was one year, a few years back, where I went on a local TV station with our holiday guide, a shopping guide that we had created. And I felt like I was on an infomercial. It was a weird experience, but it was cool to be on TV talking about some of our neighborhood entrepreneurs and the cool things they had to offer for the holidays. American Express does a small business Saturday event, and they have this free swag that they offer for ambassadors that sign up. And so we've had folks in the neighborhoods sign up to be ambassadors for this American Express Small Business Saturday program, which means that they get balloons and signage and bags and buttons and stickers and stuff like that. And that has been popular with some of our business owners. In your communities, you may have seen that. I've definitely traveled the country during and right after the holidays and seen that American Express swag all over the place. A corporate gift guide so that some of our local corporations, medical institutions, educational institutions can consider using small businesses for their, employee gifts and things like that. Branded shopping bags, and then promoting businesses at neighborhood meetings. So going to places where residents are gathering and bringing small business owners with us to promote and feature. So those are some of the things that we've tried, and it has all been a collaborative effort. For example, Monday, when we're doing this best practices webinar for businesses, we've got about 6 different organizations that have helped make that happen. And so having these collaborative spaces where we all gather has been really essential. I wanted to tell you specifically about the mini grants because this is just a new way of collaborating that has been really interesting. It has just brought more, I think, attention and vibrancy to some of the neighborhood organizations and the things that they're doing. So last year was the first year we pieced it together very quickly. And in 2 weeks, we had almost 150 people / organizations apply for these mini grants, which is, we're talking like $1,000 to $2,000. So we ended up awarding $30,000 last year across 20 grantees. And we had a selection committee and criteria and all that stuff. But we funded so many different things. And I think we're going to repeat this again this year. But it's made us think, like, how could we leverage this to bring neighborhoods across the city and across the county together in a coordinated way to, just create even more energy and vibrancy and optimism in the beginning of winter in Michigan. So this year, we're doing this in kind of 2 different tracks. One track for the 501c3 neighborhood organizations that are established that have experience doing events, and then another track for individuals with creative ideas that are looking to jump in and create opportunity for themselves and others in their neighborhood. So we'll see how that goes, but it has definitely enabled some really cool things to happen in neighborhoods. And then I wanted to share some of the things that we're kind of thinking about for the future, or some ideas that have been thrown out there that we haven't tried that we might try. And I invite you to brainstorm with me. So definitely starting earlier in the year. So we established that in January of 2023, we're going to have a meeting reflecting back on this holiday season and setting a plan of action for the group, this collective group of nonprofits, to think about how we can do things differently with more time. More intentional feedback from business owners, including the revenue impact. We haven't ever tracked how the collective work that we do together has impacted revenue. Anecdotally, we think there's been some positive results for our business owners, especially those who are participating in like vendor fairs and things like that, they're just getting access to bigger markets, but we'd like to track that. I mentioned with the grants, thinking about how could we align our neighborhoods across the city and across the county to have a coordinated schedule so that shoppers could say like, oh, this weekend there's something going on in this neighborhood, and this weekend there's something going on in that neighborhood, all leading up to the end of the year, Christmas and New Year's and all that. In past years, it's really been focused around Small Business Saturday, which is the Saturday after Thanksgiving, sort of like the small business neighborhood version of Black Friday. But when everything's all on one day, it sort of divides the attention, if you will. So thinking about that. Different kinds of promotions. The pop-up thing is interesting. We have a lot of organizations and people that put on vendor fairs and pop-up opportunities for entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. And business owners who are looking for those opportunities don't have a central place to find them. So we're thinking about that. More coordinated sponsorships to help this be bigger, badder, better, but also to engage a different group in our community, the funding community, the corporate community, et cetera. Thinking about engaging with business owners differently. So a lot of our promotions were around what specific sales are you offering for the holidays, and thinking about how we promote people in different ways. Because some people don't have specific sales for the holidays and others do. So thinking about that, being consistent with our offerings and message to business owners year over year. Different ways that advertising, different ways to reach people, offering rebates, things like that. So we're always brainstorming. This has definitely felt like an evolution over the years and will continue to be. So yeah, I would love to hear not only questions about what we've done, but also your feedback and ideas, because this is something that is definitely going to continue to grow, expand, and take different forms over time, and as different people come into the collaboration. So that is what I've got.
Lily, that is so fascinating to me. One thing about the pop-ups that this reminded me of is that I have a friend and colleague who has worked in a small rural community here in Arizona to do a lot of it was a copper mining town, and the mine closed in the 70s. So it's a lot of economic development trying to replace that income. But they actually bought a food cart so that people could borrow it for pop-up events, you know what I mean, here and there. And I was just thinking, because so many neighborhoods I work in want a coffee shop. And I always say, well, can we try pop-up coffee shop, first, and see, to try and get the entrepreneur feeling comfortable, like this neighborhood is really a place where they can cover their fixed costs. But I don't know personally how complicated it is to get a rig together, but it's not cheap, I'm sure.
No, it's not. And those sort of trial experiences of popping up are so important for people to have before making the investment.
Yeah. So as Anne just put into the chat, please, everybody, put any questions you have into the chat or into the Q&A. There's a Q&A thing here. Oh, I think we might have one. Let's see. So Michelle asked Symphony if you would give some details of your neighborhood branding projects. One of my favorite topics.
Yeah, so we did a neighborhood brand for Mid-City community. And so Mid-City community is very whimsical. The people here love hosting like different type of pop-up shops, and it's an arts community. We have an arts and culture district. It's a very whimsical place. And so when we thought about ways and strategies, like how do we bring the people together? How can we, make it feel when you step into Mid-City, you know where you are. And so I want to say last year, maybe 2 years ago, we had this really big tree cut out of wood, and we painted it as a tree. and we had construction paper leaves. And we asked people, and we brought it to every single event happening in the community. We asked people, when you think of Mid-City, what do you think about? Draw it, write it, whatever your artistic designs look like. I'm not a drawer, so I wrote a paragraph. But we had put the leaves on the tree. And after towards the end of the year, maybe like 6 or 7 months in, we took all the leaves down, looked at all of them and saw what kept popping up. And it was an acorn. And we got a local branding company, a design company, to create a logo. And then once this logo was created, we told everyone you can use it for whatever reason, you just cannot change it. If you want to put a mural up, you have access to this logo. If you want a sticker, if you want to just draw it on the side of the road, you have the power to do that. And it allowed the community to feel a connection, to feel that they were part of something, and to let everybody else know about it. And we continue with this model every time we do an event in Mid-City. We always use the colors. We just continue to just reinforce it. We're using the colors, we're using the name, we're using the acorn, and just consistently reinforcing it. And after a while, people are going to start using connecting it to other things. And so that was one of the ways that we did a community branding. We also have a mascot that was prior to me, but we have Sparky the squirrel, and it just aligned very well since, the acorn. So we just allowed the residents to really just take ownership of that, and that led into the parade as well.
I love mascots, actually. I'm always trying to, I'd actually kind of like to be a mascot. That's the truth. So I'm trying to get people
Love
to
that for you. I love it.
mascots. I love, I've done a lot of neighborhood branding plans, and I just love how you collected all that input about what people wrote on the leaves about what Mid-City is about. That's really cool. And I wonder, Anne, if there's any chance, is there some place you could go to look up the logo so we could post it so people could see? Or maybe you have it, Symphony, and you can put it up.
Let me check my files. I think I have access.
Okay, you check your files. Meanwhile, Carlos asks, is there any advice on collaborating with difficult city officials for community events like a Pride Festival or an LGBTQ community forum? Have either of you had tough, unenthusiastic people at the city? Not really.
I was going to say that in my experience with this holiday collaboration, that has evolved over many years. In the beginning, we didn't have interest from the city in collaborating. And then as it grew in momentum, I think it became clear that this was a community priority and became harder for people to, we created momentum, I guess. And so I don't have particular advice about people who would be resistant to supporting the LGBT community, other than to make it a political imperative to support.
Good advice.
Honestly, I would say the same. I work very closely with the city. We have an amazing mayor who's interested in creating events that circled around like Juneteenth and LGBT community. But then also do it.
Just do it. Don't ask for permission.
That may not be the absolute best advice, but as Lily just said, when you start getting people to truly rally around a cause, it's kind of hard to say no.
Right.
Yeah.
So honestly, just do it.
We have a couple of questions here for Lily. Could you talk more about the mini grants for individuals, what the process is, what the award amounts are, and evaluations?
Yeah. So this is evolving kind of as we speak right now, but what we did last year is we did not specify the different categories for entrepreneurs versus individuals, and this year they will. But basically we said, if you have a project that is going to benefit at least, I think we said it was 5 entrepreneurs, we wanted to see that you had a plan for how you would use the funds, not just that you saw, oh, there's a couple $1,000s available, let me throw an idea together. You know, we wanted to see that there was a real plan there. We wanted to see if, you know, it was going to really have an impact on the entrepreneurs. And that's the criteria by which we were sort of evaluating. And then we had put together a selection committee. So internally, we got in all these applications, we reviewed them, and based on the criteria, we were scoring them. And then applications of any type that got a score above a certain level were brought to the selection committee for like discussion and final review. And so there were, I think about 75 of the 150-ish applications went to the selection committee, and then we eventually narrowed it down to 20, which was really hard. There were some really great ideas that didn't get funded. And we were really looking for things that were going to have the most positive impact on underserved entrepreneurs and neighborhoods alike, and sort of create this vibrancy and celebration feeling that we wanted to see. And that's how we were evaluating the projects. So this year, I think it'll be a little bit different because they're going to evaluate established nonprofits differently from individual entrepreneurs or residents with an idea. So that'll be interesting to see how that changes things. But it's exciting to see something evolve in this way, because when people know there's an opportunity there, sometimes it can spark creativity and new ideas. And then I think you asked also in your question about amounts. All of the grants were between $1,000 and $2,000. So it was really mini grants, totally focused on driving revenue for entrepreneurs.
And what did they use those funds for? I think you had the list actually.
Yeah, so I'll bring it back up, but it was there were things like holiday lighting competitions, tree lighting,
That's right.
bringing treats around to different businesses to pass out to customers, having a very concentrated vendor fair on a specific day or for a specific weekend. It was a lot of the it went into a lot of the work that Symphony described that goes into creating a holiday event. People interpreted that differently and went with it in their own ways. And then I think it also, one of the sort of ancillary benefits of it too, is that it creates a centrifugal force in a neighborhood too. When people come together to make something happen and get creative about how they're gonna do something, then it evolves too. So I'm excited to see what happens this year.
I like that characterization of centrifugal force. I was going to ask a question, I think that might be a little bit related to that of both of you, which has to do with, you know, the ways in which events can help shape a neighborhood's image, both internally and externally. And I wonder whether you've observed and could describe how events maybe affect neighborhood residents' self-perception of the place they live, and also external impressions of the neighborhood. And I also just wanted to share this brand ambassador that somebody put in the chat, because isn't that great? That's their chicken, named Cooper. Let's see, Cooper the chicken, official brand ambassador of University Heights. And see, then you can have little plush toys. They can go around and do all kinds of things. That's who I want to be when I grow up, is Cooper the chicken.
I think you got it.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. Thanks for sharing, whoever did that. So what do you think, guys, about self-image and the image the neighborhood has for other people?
Yeah, I honestly just had a new experience with that, just because there's a community that I've been working with. And so in the summer, I have this training where we train residents on community organizing skills, and then we provide them mini grants to do community improvement projects. And for one of the communities, they were trying to find a way to impact crime in their community. And that's a new field for me. And you know, a lot of times we're like, how do we impact crime? Do we like create some type of like extensive project? Do we need to bring in police officers? Like, how do we impact crime? And one of my residents, which is why I feel like it's so important to bring people in the decision-making room, one of my residents said, well, let's just have a bike ride. And I said, well, how? Like, okay. And she said, let's do a bike ride where it's a meet your neighbor type of experience. And on the bike ride, we go to different hidden jewels in the neighborhood and share the story behind them. And instantly I was like, oh my God, well, I've never thought of this. Like this, this is such like a new phenomenon, but it really wasn't. It was new to the community. And the community was very interested in the bike ride because one, it was something different. Two, it allowed positive activity to happen in the space. And people gained a more appreciation for the different assets that their community holds. A lot of times we'll look at communities and say, oh, there's abandoned property, there's unkept land, but do you see the beauty in your space as well? And this bike ride allowed that to happen, and it allowed people to think of something new to bring to their space. And it really increased the pride in place in that way.
Yeah. I have a very specific example to follow on what Symphony just shared that is recent. So Halloween in Detroit has not always been a positive experience because there's a lot of blight and in our recent history, a lot of arson. And so Halloween was sometimes a dangerous holiday. And a few years back, there was an effort in the community to combat that by creating something called Angels Night around Halloween. And then after a few years of doing Angels Night and creating safe places for kids to experience Halloween, doing like the trunk or treat kind of thing where kids go trick-or-treating in a parking lot around to cars, which is a new concept to me. I would say about 5-ish years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. I was like, okay, let's stop calling it Angels Night because that is still affiliated with sort of this Devil's Night, kind of experience. Let's just start calling it Halloween in the D. So the city started sponsoring positive Halloween in the D events. And there are, over the past couple of years, there have been several of them around the city, probably a pause in 2020. So in the neighborhood where I live, which is in Detroit, the trick-or-treating has been sparse. We hadn't experienced arson or anything bad, just like not a lot of trick-or-treaters. And I have little kids. And last year we were like, let's get the kids out. We'll take them trick-or-treating on our 2 blocks and just see how it goes. And we had a positive experience. Well, this year there was one of these trunk or treats at the rec center half a block from my house with, candy, music bumping, face painting activities, the whole thing. And I don't know if it was because of the event itself or they ran out of candy or what happened, but my street was flooded with trick-or-treaters. And it was this totally positive, magical, classic Halloween experience that I almost got emotional. I was like, this is so beautiful. I ran into colleagues. The streets were just thronging with kids doing their classic, amazing, beautiful Halloween thing. And that is not something that has happened every year. So that event, half a block from my house, created this whole different phenomenon and positive experience for not just the kids on my street, but kids that went to that event and then trick-or-treated in our neighborhood. It was
apparently their parents as well, right?
Yeah, totally. It was really great.
That's really, really interesting how Halloween, because I know exactly what you mean. Like all you hear is all this scary stories about Halloween and and so it's very symbolic to see a street thronging with kids for trick-or-treating.
Yeah, so especially after the pandemic. It was awesome.
Oh, for sure. Anne and I both wanted to hear you talk some, Symphony, and maybe you have thoughts about this too, Lily, about the idea of making up your own holidays. Like it doesn't have to be the official sanctioned holidays, right? It can be anything that's meaningful to the neighborhood. Why don't you talk about that, Symphony?
Yeah, I think that's a way to just continue building pride in place. And when I say pride in place, I just truly mean where the residents love where they are, they enjoy where they are, and they bring other people along to be a part of their community. And why not create a holiday that's special to your neighborhood that is all your own? We had one community, and this is prior to my existence, but they have one community called Old South Baton Rouge in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And they used to have the Bottom Bash, and they call it the Bottom Bash because half of their community is considered the bottom because it's at a lower half of the space, and then the other half of the community is kind of risen a little bit higher. And it was this big block party that the community hosts. They had local rappers come out, local performers. We have Southern's band that used to come out, and people waited every year for this. It was their own holiday. Unfortunately, due to increase in crime, it was canceled. Like the city has shut it down. But it was something that I still hear stories about. And I've been in the Baton Rouge community for at least going on 7 to 10 years. And for them to continue to talk about it means that it was something special. And it was so special to the point that I actually brought a team last year to NeighborWorks CLI, and they wanted to bring it back. They had used their grant dollars to bring back the Bottom Bash, but it was in conjunction with Juneteenth. And so they created a space for the residents to feel that it had the same feeling, it had the same ambiance and experience, and they were able to enjoy that time once again. And also in this moment, they had revealed a new historic landmark. So yeah, it was really, really awesome. And it allowed the residents in that space to say this can happen again. It doesn't have, just because it was shut down once doesn't mean we can't have it again, and allow it to be their own personal holiday, which brings in economic development, increases pride in place, affects blight remediation, because who wants to host a block party with unkept grass and in front of abandoned cars? So people took more pride in the roads and in the community as well.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, so I mean, I think in general that events, how when you had that slide at the beginning, Symphony, that talked about, I don't think this was the point of the slide, but all of the deficits in a neighborhood, but turning it around to all of the goals that you have for the neighborhood. And that's one of the things I think about events, is that it's a place where we can move away from only just solving a list of problems to actually adding something positive above the zero line, to engage people around fun and pride and accomplishment, things that are not just always about solving problems. And I think that's so important to building that pride of place and building, I guess, ownership of the neighborhood and engagement with neighbors and everything else. Yeah, so let's see, do we have any other questions? Not really. Let's see. I'll pose one more that was on my mind, which I think you alluded to, Lily, which is like, what are ways, let's see, how can I phrase this? I think it's two things. Like for for people in our webinar right now who don't have the capacity to do a big event yet, what are some ways they can start to do some little things? And then also, do you find it to be useful to keep having like small ways to get involved as well as big ways? I think you alluded to that by talking about the individual mini grants as well as the organizational ones. But what would you guys say for getting started if there isn't a signature event in your neighborhood yet?
Yeah, there are so many ways to get started small. And for this collaborative citywide shop small effort, it started with a common listing of businesses. So we had one organization that said, yes, you can use our website. We had, a couple people came together, made an intake form, everybody could put their stuff up. So it started really small with just that listing and then grew into these events. I think for some of our neighborhood organizations, The focus is really on just like having a place where vendors could come and sell their goods and services. And it started small and grew. And I know for a couple of the neighborhood organizations that I work closely with, that has snowballed and become bigger and bigger, and to the point where they can be more selective about who they have at their vendor fair, and it increases quality and just like builds on itself. Another thing that I've seen be exciting is to add music. So, just to have someone playing a guitar or a DJ or just even a single person, can make such a big difference. Because my presentation was focused on the holidays, like having someone dress up as Santa, like there are these little things that don't necessarily cost a lot. Having a decoration contest, things like that aren't necessarily a big financial lift or a big coordination lift, but can just bring people together. And then another example that I'll give that is not holiday related is we talk a lot about like where we have and don't have community organizations that support small businesses. And some places where we don't have organizations that are there to support entrepreneurs have come together around things like cleaning up the alley or advocating for the pothole to get taken care of or whatever it is. But like infrastructure and cleanup efforts can also be things that just get people together and rally folks around common experience.
And sometimes I think the role that we can play in that is to promote those ideas so that other merchants associations or whatever can see what their peers are doing and say, oh, okay, yeah, we could do that too. Did you have anything to add to that, Symphony?
Yeah, I was just going to say, make sure to connect with your resources in your community. I love everything that Lily has said, and connecting with resources in the community can be very beneficial because you might uncover things that you didn't know exist. For example, our police department, if you ask them, they offer free hamburgers and hot dogs to community events, and they barbecue. So I didn't think that was a thing. But if you ask them to provide hot dogs to an event, they will. We have reached out to local corner stores, local grocery stores, asking if they can just donate water. Something so small as that, because I know with a lot of events that we host, food is always the hardest thing to come by, but it's also like we need food. What's going to bring people in? And so getting restaurants and grocery stores and local community stores to just donate water or donate chips or see if, that's something that they do. I think that can definitely motivate you to at least just act. I encourage you just to act. Ask nonprofits and businesses. Let them know what you want to do and see how they would want to be a part of it. Because if a business truly rests inside of a community, they should want to care about what happens in that community, whether that's donating a check, donating an item, or just providing other resources. I always encourage you that. The worst they can honestly say is no.
Yeah, I often think about when I'm doing neighborhood strategies about how can we get the institutions or businesses or whoever in the neighborhood to think of themselves as also being neighbors and neighborhood residents and to act in the neighborhood in that way. And just generally speaking, to think of the way that you both talked about, there are a million jobs to be done in any event. And the more opportunities we create for people to dip their toe in, the more likely they're going to, if that works out well for them, they might take on a little bit more next time. Just make it as inclusive as possible. So our time is come to a close, but both of you were fantastic. It must be so fun to do what you do. And I realize there's so much work behind the scenes. So we really appreciate you sharing what you've learned about it all. Please do join us, everybody, to be a member of the Middle Neighborhoods Community Practice, and then you will have, us email you when we have new webinars, like on November 17th. One of the things about Middle Neighborhoods is that there's a lot of housing stock that needs to be rehabbed. Sometimes it needs to have a bath added to it, all kinds of stuff. So how do we help make that happen for all different kinds of neighborhood residents. And so we're going to have a webinar called New Data and New Ways of Thinking about Maintaining the Housing Stock in Middle Neighborhoods. We'll have the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard share their new analysis of data about that, and two practitioners that have a very comprehensive, kind of like Symphony and Lily just described for events. They also have a multifaceted approaches to helping everybody fix up their home at different levels, whatever they're comfortable with doing. So it's just not one size fits all. We always like to promote one of our friends of Middle Neighborhoods, which is the Center for Community Progress. And they have a cornerstone webinar series. It's really good. I see a question from Mackenzie about what's the website for Middle Neighborhoods. It's middleneighborhoods.org. So look at the bottom of any page to sign up. And I think that's all we have for today. Thanks again, Symphony and Lily, and thanks to everyone for coming out. It was a great webinar.